Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Um, yeah, I thought it would be a really fun idea to combine the end of year book tag with a little New Year's reading vlog. It is currently Hogmany, New Year's Eve for you guys who are not in Scotland. I'm doing solo New Year's this year, just as a treat to myself, really. Um, no stress, no thrills, nothing. Family obligations, visits are all done. Friends visits, they all happen throughout the year. Don't have to specifically do it on New Year's. I'm not a big celebrator of New Year's because, I know it's like New Year, New You and all that. But if I'm going to do something that's good for me or I want to start something, sorry, excuse me, I'll just start it when it seems right. I'm not going to wait for the first. Um, so yeah. So I'm going to have just a really quiet night, chilled out. My plans for tonight are, it's currently 4:30. I am still in my pajamas. It's fine. Uh, I'm a grown-ass adult woman. I can be in my pajamas at 4:30 if I want to. Because you get to make your own decisions when you're an adult. And it's one of the only perks. But yeah, no, I'm gonna tidy up the house a little bit so that I can be proper stress-free tomorrow. Do as much prep as I can. I say do as much prep as I can. I'm gonna, tidy my kitchen. That's about it. Take the nut roast out to defrost. That's really, realistically, that's all I need to do for tomorrow. I might pre-make some pancake batter and have pancakes for breakfast. That's a good shout, future Amy. Yeah, and then I'm just gonna have a cozy evening reading. I am going to hopefully finish listening to The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. I've got about an hour and a half left of the audiobook, and I just think it'd be really nice to finish a book on New Year's Eve, on Hogmanay. It's just, on the last day of the year, finish a book. I started a book on the 1st of January this year, I think, but just it would be nice to just, start a book on the first day, finish a book. I'm not going to be starting a new book tomorrow because I'll be starting a new book tonight, so, that's how it goes. Yeah, once I've done all of that and I'm snuggled in for the evening, I was going to continue with If I Have to Be Haunted. Is that right? Is that the right way up? I don't know. As always, the dust cover is still upstairs. But this is the Fairy Loot edition. This is basically she sees dead people. He's now dead. Kind of. We've now got a race against time to try and bring him back to life. We've basically got a week to bring him back to life. Nobody else knows she can see dead people. And it's been a lot of fun. Whilst, the journey throughout reading this, my overriding thought is this would make a really great CW show. Put it next to The Vampire Diaries and, Rain and whatever else the CW does. This would make a really good CW show. So yeah, having a lot of fun with that. However, this turned up yesterday. And it is so freaking shiny. But it is from The Cove with Love by Mariana Zapata. Look at those sprayed edges, guys. This is an enemies to lovers figure skating romance. That's all I know. That's all I need to know. Months and months and months, 6+ months ago, Fairy Loot released, announced their Mortal edition. And I was like, I kind of need that in my life. So I have put off reading this book. I have put it off and I have put it off. I've seen the paperback really cheaply. And yeah, I put it off. But it turned up yesterday. So I actually think rather than continuing with this, because I actually started this a week ago, but I've just not been doing a lot of reading this week. Final Fantasy 16 turned up, okay? I've dedicated a lot of time to it. I'm really enjoying it. That's all we'll say on that one. I'm really, really enjoying it, and I've given it so much hours of my life. But yeah, So I've not been reading a huge amount anyway, but I think rather than continue with this tonight, I'm just going to dive straight into this because this is what's calling to me. And we'll see how it goes. But yes, I did say at the start of this clip that we were going to combine this with the end of year book tag. So let's... what I'm thinking is I'll do sort of like first 5 questions now. Maybe tonight, as I'm waiting for the bells or just after the bells, I'll give you the next couple of questions. I'll give you some more answers in the morning and then maybe some more in the evening, and I'll, you know, have a couple of like reading clips and updates throughout there. For this vlog is probably going to cover like the shortest amount of time, but it's definitely not going to be my shortest vlog. But it's me. They're never short anymore. So let's just do this. The tag was originally... I will let you know at some point in this vlog who had the tag or who did this tag originally. But I found one that's got like 20 or so questions, so we'll deal with that. And I will definitely tag them down below if I forget to tell you. Well, let's just hop into it, shall we? So the first question, it's the most disappointing book of the year. That was the very first book I read this year. So yeah, 2023's reading really got off to an excellent start. But that was Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. It kept being like, it was really popular for a while. And it kept being like really promoted as it's a feminist retelling of Ariadne. And what really got to me about this book, and what really made it a disappointment, was it's not feminist in the slightest. It is a female POV retelling. It is retelling the small portion of that overall myth. It's a retelling of Ariadne, stretched out, felt really long. It dragged so much. For a relatively short book, it dragged. Because I'm sure it was only about 350 pages, give or take. But yeah, it's a female POV retelling, but it's not feminist. She has absolutely no agency in her life. Every time a man enters her life, he upends it, he overhauls it. I really struggle to say, like, she can't think for herself. Like, she doesn't make any decisions. Everything she does is for whichever man she happens to be in love with at the time. So yeah, I really, really didn't enjoy Ariadne. I actually think because I read it as a book club book, so I was like, no, I've got to finish it, and I should have DNF'd it. Ariadne was not on my 2023 DNFs video because I pushed myself and I forced myself to finish it. And I should have just gone, do you know what, hands up, no, I can't read this book, it is so bad. But people kept assuring me, saying, no, it gets better. And I'm like, it never got better. It didn't. Like, overall, it sat as like a 2-star on my spreadsheet for most of the year. And then I think a couple of months ago, I was looking back and I'm like, actually, no, that was a 1-star read. I think that's one of the very few 1-stars I have given and I ever will give. Because I'd rather DNF a book than 1-star it. But yeah, Ariadne was just, it was not good. I was in a reading slump for like the first 4 months of the year. And I'm blaming Ariadne. But moving on, swiftly. Underdog book of the year. This one I've gone with Another Dead Intern by the author whose name I cannot... Joseph something. Joe something. You can see the picture, you can see what his name is. This is a paranormal fantasy. It is not a romance, which was a really pleasant surprise. I did do a sort of like a reading vlog, travel vlog for this one, which I will link somewhere. And yeah, this one was it was a lot of fun. I read this as part of the Spiffbo 9 readathon over on a Discord somewhere. I have not been active in Discord in several months, so I can't even remember which one it was. But yeah, I read this one in the summer and I had a lot of fun with it. It's a paranormal, solve the crime, travel about, do stuff. I really enjoyed some of the character work. I felt the humor in it was a lot of fun. And yeah, overall had a really, really good time with it. It was definitely one of my better surprises of the year. Like, I was like, okay, it's indie pub. They're really hit or miss. I'll give it a shot. You never know. I actually got it as a freebie. I won it as part of a giveaway. And yeah, like, hands down, one of the best freebies I've gotten this year. I did that line out. But yeah, overall, like, such a good, for a book that like literally nobody is talking about, was definitely like a really good reading experience. So that's my underdog book of the year. Next up is a book that was overhyped. I'm gonna go with Ariadne again for all the reasons I have just stated. I've already ranted, so we're just gonna move on. Did not like an Ariadne. Favorite book couple. I had to think about this one because I've read a lot of romance this year. I'm gonna go with Iris and Roman from Divine Rivals. I'm not sure if it's specifically them, but it kind of like it is. But overall, like, I just really, really enjoyed Divine Rivals. It was such. It gave me all of my You've Got Mail, Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks feels. And they were just so sweet and so lovely and so wonderful. And I absolutely adored it. So, yeah, they're my favourite couple. They were so cute. And all the letters back and forth. I mean, how could you not fall in love with them both? They were brilliant. I loved them. And then the last one before I actually go and do some housework is your favourite main character. Again, this was a really hard one. Interestingly, because I was looking at like the list of everything I've read going, none of these are screaming at me. The reason I'm basically doing this and not like my top 10 books of the year is although I've had like in some ways I've had a really good reading year, it's also just been a kind of reading year with a few highlights. So yeah, I kind of struggled, but one book I kept going back to going, yeah, you. Oh yeah, no, you were, yeah. And that is Babel, and main character is Robin Swift. He is definitely the character that he gave my heart a workout. Shall we put it that way? I laughed with him a few times. I definitely shouted at him several times for terrible, terrible decision making. I cried. He made me cry so often. My heart really bled for him. R.F. Kuang's character work in this was just phenomenal. And just like, this is definitely like one of the best books I've read this year. So, Robin from Babel. But anyway, I'm going to go do some more housework, and I will see you guys a little bit closer to the new year with the next few questions and maybe a reading update. And I'm back. It's now 11:30. We've got 30 minutes left of 2023. So I thought I'd come in and quickly update because, oh, guys, I am flagging. Yeah, I haven't read too much. I did read the first two pages. First two chapters of From the Cough with Love. Yeah, I think I'm definitely going to enjoy this. So far we've got our main character Jasmine. She started as a singles figure skater, has moved on to pairs, and is now kind of very, very reluctantly considering, maybe retirement or retiring from competitions is something she needs to start considering because she is 26, which in figure skating is kind of old, unfortunately. And she's not won anything. She's come close, but she's not actually won anything. And she's really kind of going through a slump essentially right now. Excuse me, a hard time. And she's just been approached by Lukov, who is basically taking gold every time. He is a pair skater, but he goes through multiple partners. He's basically got like a different pair skater partner every year. So him and his coach have just approached her saying, "Do you want to be your partner this year?" And that's where I left off, because I did do some housework. You can see I actually got dressed, even though it was like 4:30. I was still in my pajamas. I have this really weird thing where I can't do the housework when I'm still in my pajamas. I think because pajamas are like, I'm comfy, I'm being lazy, I'm doing fun things, or I'm just like snuggling and just being calm and quiet. Housework is not calm and quiet, and it's productive, and it's doing something, it's being active. I can't do that when I'm in my pajamas. I've got to. It's a weird mental block where it's like, no, if I want to get stuff done, I've got to get dressed. So yeah, I got dressed at like 4:30, 5 o'clock. Why not? Yeah, did litter trays, took all the bins out, did some dishes, did some laundry. Didn't listen to my book, so I'm not finishing anything today. I kind of fell down a booktube rabbit hole. I have spent the last few hours just watching booktube, catching up, because I've not been watching as much. So catching up on a lot of the end of year content, adding a lot of books to my wish list, because it's all the books everyone's raving about. And yeah, that's kind of been my evening. This is how I have spent Hogmany, guys. It's not a bad way, I'm not gonna lie. It's been fine. But if it weren't for the fact that it's Hogmany and, you know, the bells are in less than half an hour, I would be in my bed right now. So I do apologise if this particular update is a little ramblier than normal. But I'm normally asleep at this point. And I don't know why I stay up for this. I really don't. But shall we do the next 5 questions on the end of year book tag? Let's do it. So the 6th prompt is a book that surprised you. And this was an interesting one to try and figure out, because I can't really say any books really surprised me this year. Mostly because I don't go into a book expecting to not like it. If I come across a book that I don't think I'm going to like, I'm just not going to start it unless someone really convinces me to give it a shot. So for this one, I'm going with Cinder by Marissa Mayer. Mostly, I read this book. It was a book club pick for the Recreate book club. I'll link a Discord down below as well. I kind of went into it going, it'll be fine. It's a Cinderella retelling. It was published back 2012, I think. So it's been around for a wee while. But it's basically a Cinderella retelling set against the backdrop of a plague, and Cinderella's a cyborg. Oh, and we're at war with the moon. And I actually ended up liking it a lot more than I expected to. I don't think it's going to become like a top 10 book of the year, though I'm not really going for my top 10. But I am, at some point, probably this year, I do want to continue in that series and pick up the next book. I could get it from the library, but I've been finding that when I'm ordering things from the library, by the time they come, they did the mood, my timing. By the time my reservations come in and are available, I'm just not in the right mood for it. Here's the problem. I really want to support my library. I absolutely adore my library. My librarians are wonderful, wonderful people. But when something comes in, I'm like, okay, now I have to read it within a certain time. And then you all know, as soon as I have to read something, I don't. So the amount of times I take a book out from the library and then just don't return it. Yeah. Anyway, I warned you about the rambling. Okay, next is a new favourite author you discovered in 2023. And I mean, she's not a new author for anybody by far, but that's Octavia E. Butler. I read my first Octavia E. Butler in this year, and that was Dawn, which is the first in the Xenogenesis trilogy, also known as Lilith's Brood. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure. I've got Adulthood Rights sitting. There's way too many books here. Literally here. As soon as I finished it, I listened to Dawn. Immediately went to download the second one from Audible, and apparently the trilogy is no longer available there. But it's like, I'm yay for not supporting Audible. But, grr, I really wanted to listen to it. So I immediately bought all 3 books in the trilogy, and now it's just sitting here waiting. I'm 8 pages into it. I think I'm worried I'm not going to enjoy this one as much as I did the first one. But yeah, that is like, I really want to pick this up, and I will at some point, because Dawn it was just so good. I don't even know how to describe it. It's basically, it takes place where humanity have reached the brink of destruction, self-destruction. We're literally at war. We've literally gone to war with ourselves to the point that we're wiping. Humanity is wiping itself out. These aliens come along and pick up the remnants of humanity. They pick up what's left. And they're like, we can save you guys, but there's a price. And the price is you... Well, that's kind of a spoiler. But not really. The price is basically the way this alien species reproduces and continues is by... basically the way they survive is by breeding with other species. And humanity is the lucky species this time. But it's just some of the questions that she raises is like, what is it to be human? Like, there's the... I don't know, would you accept... How would we accept something like this? Where, you know, we've got people fighting for almost like the purity of humanity to like, no, we don't want to be interbreeding with another species because we want to remain human. I was like, and in my head I'm like, but how, like, why? Because like, is humanity all that great, particularly in this world where we literally try to destroy each other? It's just like, some of the themes she touches upon are just like, she does it so well. Her writing was just immediately gripping. I absolutely adored it. I don't know, I think maybe once I finally finished, I will try and do like a coherent review of the trilogy. Doing it at 20 to midnight is not the best idea. But I absolutely adored it. Okay, next. The happiest read of the year. Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Laura Gilmore. It's a very recent read. It is basically a Hallmark film in a book. It is a cozy small town rom-com heavily inspired by Gilmore Girls, and honestly guys, that's all you need to know about it. Anything else, well, I mean, if you've seen a Hallmark movie, you know the plot. But it was just such a cozy, lovely read. Add to that, I read it when I was in New York, so it's set in like a small American town. I was, you know, I was reading it, I was in a Starbucks at one point, having a chestnut latte, which is not a flavour, it's not a festive flavour we get in the UK, and I adore chestnut as a flavour. And it was just such a fun, cozy, happy read, combined with, I was in a really good place reading it. Hands down, my happiest read of the year. Easy. Number 9, the most frustrating book of the year. If you haven't guessed, it was Ariadne. And I don't think I need to tell you why, because I already have, haven't I? Yeah. And then the last one for this update is the best adaptation of the year. So interesting, like, honestly, I'm not entirely sure if this prompt is for like a book that's been adapted, or if it's aiming for like, do you want me to name like a TV show or something? I don't watch a lot of TV at all. I watch a lot of like Asian dramas, but that's about it, really. Um, and I've not really read any books that I think would be counted as adaptations or books that have been adapted. So I'm gonna go with, and let's face it, guys, it wouldn't be like a best of tag or whatever if I didn't bring up the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, would it? But this year we finished the Modazushi finished being the official English translations. The last volume was published this year, which I read and adored. Of course I did. But we're also getting the official publication of the graphic novel. So I have been reading those, and they are wonderful. They are truly, truly wonderful. I think as far as like adaptations, it's definitely the most faithful adaptation of the novel. And yeah, it's just brilliant. Come on, we know I love it. We know I love it. But yeah, anyway, that's me. I am going to finish this wee wrap up because I can already see my phone pinging with people sending a Happy New Year messages and all that. And yeah, I'll chat to you tomorrow morning once I've had a coffee and I'm a bit more coherent. Good morning. It is now January 1st, 2024. We now start the long month or two long slog of trying desperately not to write 2023 every time we write the date. But we're here, we made it. If you hear any rumbling in the background, the Airbnb that's next door to me are in the process of vacating, which, you know, naturally is never the quietest thing when it's a family vacating it, so the kid is excited. I don't know. But yeah, I made it up to the bells. Woo, go me! I'm getting way too old for this. At the ripe old age of 33, almost 34. It's hard staying up to midnight, guys. It's hard. And then I was messaging a friend. We both thought we were celebrating New Year's with someone else, specifically our parents. I thought her parents were still over visiting her. She thought I was done visiting mine. So we had that like, oh, we're both doing solo New Year. Like we could have, one of us could have come to the other. Followed by that, actually, please don't be insulted. I'm kind of low-key, high-key glad I'm doing solo New Year. And it's one of the, I think it's one of, this particular friend, it's what I love. It's like the beauty of our friendship is neither of us will be insulted when we're like, actually, I don't want your company today. Like, I would totally welcome her company, but at the same time, it's nice to be on my own sometimes. Often. But yeah. But I've got my coffee, I'm slowly waking up. You can see I've got a very healthy breakfast of bourbon biscuits and leftover chocolate. This, by the way, I discovered the other day. Why have I not known this existed like the rest of the season? This is amazing. This tastes amazing. Last night I did eat like most of the bar. But yeah, plans for today are reading, maybe playing a bit more Final Fantasy, because yeah, I had a look at my app. I've played something like 22 hours in the last 22 hours. I have played 22 hours over something like 4 days. So I think it's safe to say I'm really enjoying Final Fantasy. So yeah, I'm gonna maybe play a little bit of that. Definitely continue doing some reading. I'm going to read some more of From Look Up With Love. Because yeah, I'm fairly certain I'm going to enjoy this. Technically I've been up for like an hour, but I was sitting in bed playing on my phone, reading on my phone, and I started another book because apparently we're entering a book starting phase. So we'll see how that goes. These can always be interesting. Sometimes they're the start of a slump, so we're going to be keep an eye on it, be careful, and just only start books that we're going to really grip us. But I started My Roommate's a Vampire. And that's just going to be a lot of fun. I'm a little... I've got a couple of quibbles already, like... Okay, our main characters, they've not met yet. She's just going around to view the apartment. And it's like... all the pictures that she's seen of the apartment are that, you know, it's like something like straight out of the 50s, like he talks very old fashioned. I'm like, have we got an older vampire who's maybe not kept up with the modern advances, which feels a little bit unrealistic, but I can set that aside and I'm still gonna have a really good time reading it. So yeah, reading wise, I've got My Roommate's a Vampire, From Look Off With Love, and I will still be continuing with If I Have to Be Haunted. So that's kind of my plans for today, is to dip in and out of all my different books, maybe play a bit of Final Fantasy. I'll cook myself a nice dinner at some point. I've got a nut roast in. I've never actually had a nut roast before, but my friends... Okay, I've only been vegetarian for like a year or so. But yeah, my friend got it in a couple of weeks ago for me because she was going to do a Sunday lunch for me, her, and another friend, but our other friend didn't turn up. She had family issues. So we ended up sort of like scrapping the idea of doing a roast, and we had raptoki instead, which is like ramen and tteokbokki, and it was beautiful. It was wonderful. It was so good. Which is not a dish that our other friend can eat at all. It's like chock full of all the things she's not allowed to eat. So we're like, well, we're just gonna have that instead. And I came home with a nut roast, which is in the freezer. So I need to take that out to defrost, I think. That's what I will do once I finish chatting to you guys. And yeah. So I figure we can go through the next few questions on the end of year book tag. And then I'll chat to you guys in a little while. Maybe when I'm having my dinner. Let you know how my day's going. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yeah. Anyway. Let's do this. I take a sip of my coffee first. Oh, that's good. I put some pumpkin spice syrup in my coffee because why not? And it's just... But where did we get to? Okay, we're going to start on question 11 because we're doing 5 at a time, aren't we? That's what we're doing, yes. So the longest book you read this year... I did go through a lot of these questions last night, so I've like pre-answered them. Was a toss-up. It was either going to be Babel or June. But I think Babel just pits June. I think. I didn't read a lot of chonkers this year. It's not been my best reading year. But yeah, I think I did them both on audio, and Babel I think is like 20 minutes longer than June, so we're gonna hazard a guess. I seriously doubt I read anything that was longer than Babel. And then the next one is the shortest book you read this year. That's an easy one. That's Ice Planet Barbarian. I don't even think it was 200 pages. It was really, really short. Ice Planet Barbarian is the first in the Ice Planet Barbarian series. Smutty alien romance sci-fi. Favorite book covers? I couldn't decide if I wanted to go with the favorite book cover I acquired or the favorite cover, that I read. In the end, it turned out they were the same, so huzzah, go me. I'm not sure if many people would say this one, but I know a lot of people, when it comes to the Fairy Loot editions, are like, oh, they're so over purple. Fairy Loot use purple so often. But purple's one of my favorite colours. So I was really happy when we got this particular cover for Threads That Bind. It is really super shiny. The foiling is super shiny. But it's just really pretty. Look at it. It's got all the purples. It's got beautiful sprayed edges that wrap around. It's got the really pretty end papers. It's got the sort of like purple aubergine cover with the foiling, and it just works so well. It's even got a reversible dust jacket, which is also purple themed, and also just really, really pretty. So yeah, I think in terms of like covers, this definitely. And I will say it's probably of the subscription books that I've gotten this year, I think this might be my favourite subscription book. That is not one of the questions on this list, so that is a bonus of my subscriptions, which are, I get Fairy Loot, I've got my Mr. Bees, and I've recently started treating myself to Illumicrate, which I think I will probably, fairly soon I'm probably going to cancel Fairy Loot because the Illumicrate books are appealing more to me. But I've only had 2 months worth of Illumicrate so far. So we'll see how we get on. Kind of going to give it till sort of like January, February before I make up my mind. But digressing. Of all of my subscription books, this is the one that I've enjoyed the most. And it's the prettiest. So, I mean, that's a win all round, right? Yes. 14 was A Book You Haven't Stopped Thinking About. I almost said Babel for this one because I am still thinking about Babel, and it doesn't help that my friend that I was chatting to last night is also currently reading Babel. But in the interest of not using it for too many answers and trying to get a bit of diversity in my answers, I'm going with Dawn by Octavia E. Butler. Now, I know I've mentioned her before, but I really enjoyed Dawn. Although I think like in terms of all the sci-fi out there, it's no longer a very unique concept. It was very unique and new to me, and I think it probably was at the time. Octavia E. Butler was definitely a writer way ahead of her time. And just what she covered was brilliant. Just the way she wrote it all, it was just so, so beautiful. And I'm still thinking about all these characters and what's going to happen and just how it all came together. Like, she had to get our characters into certain situations and get them through some pretty incredible out there things. And she made it work so well. She handled it just so sensitively and tenderly and just perfectly. Like, hands down. I know people say, you know, like, it's interesting, the Xenogenesis trilogy, Lilith's Brood, when people are talking about their introduction to Octavia E. Butler, like, where should you start? They never mention this trilogy. And it's just like, I'm like, if this is not what you consider like your starting gripping point, what else do I have to come? Like, what else have I got coming? Because yeah, one of my goals this year is to read more from authors I've discovered, and Octavia E. Butler is definitely one of those. Just, yeah, Dawn is just it was a masterpiece. I have no criticism about it. None whatsoever. And then last for this morning is the cringiest book you read this year. Now that's dead easy. That is called Luna's Choice. Let me remember who the author was. Scroll down my list. Where is it? The Luna's Choice by Kat Silver. This was a web novel that I read. Yeah, it was one of those where it's like, sometimes when you're scrolling on like Facebook, it'll be like, here's like the start of a shifter romance that you then have to like pay bit by bit for. Pay for like every chapter. Well, I managed to find a copy, like a complete copy online that I didn't have to pay for, and I read it. I don't know why I read it. It was terrible. Like, there was no redeeming features for it. It was so bad. The writing was cringy. The character decisions were cringy. Yeah, it was very much oh, who will she choose? Done so wrong. Done so badly. But I still read it. And I'm still questioning why. I think it was just one of those weekends where it's like, I just wanted to read something crap. And that was it. So yeah, that's it for this update. Yeah, this vlog is not going to be super quick, but that's fine. We're having fun. We're having a good time. I'm gonna go finish my coffee, have a few more bourbon creams, and figure out which book I want to pick up for the morning, and just sit and read and chill, and it's gonna be beautiful, and it's gonna be a great start to the year.
Just a very brief update to say that Maisie woke up. Look at her. We haven't had Maisie on the channel for a while, so no, don't run away. Say hello. Look at that grumpy face. She's so grumpy. Don't know if you can hear her purring. Yeah.
I'm back with another update. It's 4:20. Yeah, I've done nothing today except read, and it's been so nice. I am about 55% of the way into My Roommate is a Vampire. And guys, it's everything my brain wants right now. It's so fucking cute. I think I said earlier, I was a bit trepidatious. Like, I was a wee bit wary about the fact that she's moving in with this vampire who has apparently like just stepped out of like 50 to 100 years ago. And it's like, how do we explain the fact that the vampire has not progressed with time? Oh, well, it's okay. It's totally fine. The author actually thought about this and has explained it. And it makes sense. Kind of. I mean, it's like the super quickest of explanations, but you know. It's like, I kind of know what I want to write. I mean, I will say it almost feels that, like, to an extent, it feels a little bit like a cop-out, but it's like, the author knew what she wanted to write and was very much like, how do I can't just, you know, write it. I do kind of need at least some explanation, so I am really happy with the fact that we at least got some kind of explanation. And we haven't spent a huge amount of time. We literally spent like half a page on the actual explanation itself. But that's okay because it's not the point of the story. So it's actually great. So we've now got our two characters interacting, and she's basically teaching this, I think he's like 200-year-old vampire, how to fit into the modern world. There was a really cute scene where she was basically explaining Instagram to him, which, like, I'm here for this. I'm so here for this. At that, combine this with the fact that they are adorable. This is like, so it's cute, it's lighthearted, it's fluffy, and it's just giving me all the warm fuzzies. But add into that at the start of every chapter, or every so often, we get a little excerpt from his diary. So we're getting little snippets from his POV, because this is first person from her point of view. But we're also, I think it'll start slowing down because they're actually interacting face to face a lot more right now. But especially early on, we get a lot of like notes and letters back and forth left to each other. Not dissimilar to the way they interact. I can't remember what they're called, but the way the main characters interact in The Flatmate by Beth O'Leary. And give me diaries, give me letters back and forth. I eat that up. I absolutely adore that. It's one of my favorite things in a rom-com. So yeah. Absolutely turning my way through this. Like I say, I'm like 55% of the way through it. I'm not quite 200 pages in, but I'm not far off 200. So there's a really good chance I'm just gonna sit and finish this tonight. I was gonna, at some point this afternoon, I was going to prep some tatties so I could do some roast tatties. I've got some parsnips in. I forgot to take my nut roast out of the freezer, so probably figure out if I can just cook that from frozen or not. I'm sure I can, just give it a little bit extra longer. We'll find out. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. I'm really, really enjoying this, like, so much more. It's, I don't know, it's kind of, in a way, it's exactly as trashy as I was expecting, and kind of what I want for today. Because I just want today to just be a fun day of reading. But at the same time, I'm like, actually, this is a lot cuter and a lot more fun than I was expecting it to be. So, like, yeah, if you're gonna have a good start to your reading year, this is a good start to my reading year. Yeah. But anyway, next time I update you, I will have either finished the book or I will be cursing myself because I'm so close to finishing it. I will let you know how I get on with my dinner. Might even show you a picture of it if I deem it picturable. I'll let you know how I got on with my very first nut roast. And we'll finish off the end of year tag. Yeah, we got this. But in the meantime, I'm going back to reading. Alright, so I went to go start editing this vlog and I realised that I kind of forgot to finish it. Oops. But that's what happens when you spend an entire day literally just reading. You can't forget to do anything else. I even forgot to have supper last night. I'm not gonna lie. I forgot to have supper. And by supper I mean like my dinner, not like that before bed snack. I mean like the actual meal. I kind of forgot about it. I chucked something in the oven at like 10:15 because, you know, I had to have something. But yeah, all that to say, I had a really good day yesterday. If you haven't clocked at this point, it's now the 2nd of January. And yeah, I had a great start to my year. I started and finished a book. Which, I mean, can you ask for a better start to your reading year at least? And for me, that's a damn good start to my year. So yeah, I started and finished My Roommate is a Vampire. And you know what? It was such a cute, fluffy read. It was perfect. I absolutely loved it. I don't know what I'm going to rate it yet. It's somewhere between a 4 and a 5 star-ish. I'm not sure if it, like, when I say I love it, when I say it's perfect, I'm not sure it warrants like a 5-star read, but it was just still such a fun, good read. I'm not going to say too much about it beyond what I've already said. Did I actually tell you guys what it was about? I don't know. Have I? Basically, it's about a girl who moves in to this apartment that is going for like suspiciously cheap, but she kind of doesn't have much other options because she is dirt poor. And her roommate's just a little bit weird. Well, it turns out he's a vampire and he needs help adjusting to the modern day. Because for reasons that are then explained, you know, he's just not been about for the last 100 years. And obviously attraction and everything spawns from there. And yeah, overall, just a really, really good fun read. What I particularly liked is that the vampire wasn't like completely smooth and suave and totally put together. Like, you know, he had his charms. He's obviously got that bit of age and maturity to him. But he's also a bit of a dork at times. And he's kind of socially awkward, which makes sense for the context of what's happening with the book. And yeah, like, in this world, all the different vampire, like, every vampire has like their own unique power. And his is not super like cool and awesome. You know, he can't fly. He doesn't have the super strength. I mean, beyond like being a vampire. I won't say what his power is, but it's nice that it's not like super cool and OP. So yeah, it was a really good first book of the year. It was a really good way to start my year. Yeah, I finished it probably about like 8:30, 9ish last night, so it was, yeah. It's very readable. The writing is obviously, it's a rom-com, it's very accessible. I'd say in terms of like writing-wise and things, it's pretty standard from what you would expect from that genre. So yeah, if you are into like rom-coms and you're toying with the idea of picking it up, I say go for it. I doubt you'll be that disappointed. Yeah, but before we completely finish and wrap this up, we do have a few questions left on the end of year tag, so let's do those, shall we? So where did we... I think we finished with the cringiest book of the year, so we're going to move on to the unpopular book that you loved. Now, the book I've picked, it's not unpopular in the sense that people don't like this book. It's unpopular in the sense that probably very little people don't even know this book exists. Literally nobody is talking about it, and it is a shame. And that is Another Dead Intern by... I still can't remember his name. Joe something. Give me a second. I have my spreadsheet open. I will tell you what his name is. 2023 reads. Joel Spriggs. Another Dead Intern by Joel Spriggs. As I said before, it is a paranormal, it's not a romance, it is a murder mystery type. Solve the crime. There's some really interesting character work. It definitely got a little darker and gruesomer, more gruesome at times than I thought. There was one particular scene where I was in the car, I was driving from Edinburgh to Livingston to visit friends, and I could feel like myself being nauseous the way he like described a certain act. I was like, did not expect it to go there. So yeah, definitely in more of like the adult range in terms of like the horror aspect, but it's definitely not a horror because I managed to read it, so just be aware of that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed it so much more than I expected. But it's unpopular in that nobody's talking about it. It is self-published. The only reason I came across it is I came across it in a giveaway in the Keymark Discord, and I happened to win the giveaway. But if it hadn't been for that, like, I wouldn't even know this book existed. So it's definitely worth giving a shot, giving a pick up. Picking it up and giving it a shot, I think is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Next we've got Book with the Most Unique Concept. This is a book I covered in my 2023 DNFs. So it's definitely one of my biggest letdowns. But that is City of Nightmares. I was really excited about this one because of the concept. It is set in this world where unless you have a certain drug in your system suppressing your dreams, there is a really good chance that when you go to sleep, you will dream, you will have a nightmare. And anytime you have a nightmare, there's a very high chance that you will become your nightmare. So if like one of your biggest fears, one of your nightmares is giant spiders, there's a really good chance you will wake up as a giant spider. With a very good chance that you will not have your mind, you will just be a giant spider. So it's set in a world where there's literally nightmares walking about all over the place. There's a pterodactyl roaming the skies. All manner of vampires exist. And what should have been like a really, really brilliant, like fascinating read actually ended up being quite boring and just not very well developed and realised, particularly in terms of the characters. I actually couldn't stand the main character, which was the main reason I DNF'd it. But yeah, it was definitely the book I picked up that had like the most, for me at least in this year, it was the book I picked up that had the most unique concept. I have skipped 2, which is the highest and lowest book you read on Goodreads. Do you agree? I don't look at ratings for books before I read them. And although I rate them, I rate things on the Storygraph and in my own spreadsheet. I don't then go back and compare that to what the overall rating is. And if I were to answer this, I'd have to do a lot more work than I'm willing to do to finish it off. And the other one that I have not answered that is favourite quotes of the year. I don't tend to keep track of quotes or prose. I don't annotate, I don't highlight my books or anything. So yeah, I genuinely couldn't tell you. There's nothing that's particularly stuck. Like, in terms of, if I had to go with like a book, to change this up and say like the book that had like my favourite prose or the most gripping prose, it's probably going to be Babel. Just because it is just so beautifully written. And there was a footnote that at one point she actually told us like the origin of the word nice, and that has stuck with me because nice originally meant basically stupid or ignorant. So I absolutely adore that. Next time you call someone nice, I'm like, ha, he's ignorant. But yeah, moving on, a book you would reread, that's probably Fourth Wing. I know it's a very polarizing book. Some of us absolutely adore it. Some of us really don't get on with it at all. I definitely fall into the camp of I ate this book up. I have since read the sequel. I loved it. It's not a masterpiece by any means. The character work is, two-dimensional at times. The writing is meh. It's mediocre. The plotting is either predictable or at times, like, I really don't understand why. Like, there are massive plot holes. Like, there's a lot of issues with this book. But my god, it's gripping. Like, it sucked me in. And, if you just go into it expecting a good time, you're gonna have a good time. That's all. It's just a trashy fun read, and I absolutely adored it for it. Okay, two more, which I'm kind of going to combine-ish. But it is your reading goal and reflection. Your reading goal, reflection, and 2024 reading goals. I don't necessarily, looking back, I don't think I really set myself any reading goals for 2023. I kind of had a just, let's not have goals and let's just read for the sake of reading, which I'm very glad about because, yeah, having slumped for the first quarter of the year, third of the year, whatever, I doubt I would have met any anyway. I'm going to have to look back. Yeah, we'll just pretend. Even if I did have goals, I obviously scrapped them at some point. So, no reading goals. Therefore, have not failed and have only succeeded this year. Yes, go me, go me. My 2024 reading goals, I'm trying not to set myself like goals as such because reading should be fun and it shouldn't be about ticking boxes. On my story graph, I've set my reading challenge to 50 books because that's sort of like my average. It's a reasonable goal. I might adjust it. Last year I did adjust it. I moved it down. I might move it up if I'm doing particularly well, but it's literally just a number just so that I can watch numbers go up. And so I don't have like this random bit at the top of my story graphs asking whether I want to set a reading challenge. It's literally just to keep my story graph tidy, essentially. What I do want to do, this is something I did in 2022, and it worked out really, really well, and I kind of wish I did it last year as well. But what I want to do is a book pot for myself again, or like a books to pounds challenge. It's not a challenge, but it's like, I don't know what else to call it. But basically, for every book that I read, I'm going to put £2 into a pot in my Monzo account. The original idea was that at the end of 2022, I could then go and have like a massive book buying splurge. But what I actually did was I then used that money to buy all my Christmas presents. And I was like, buying all my presents this year, where I hadn't set that money aside, I was like, actually, that worked out so much nicer last year. So I want to do that again this year. So yeah, for every book that I buy, every book that I read, I will put £2 into my pot. And if I can go a month without any unnecessary book purchases, then I put an additional £5 in. And by that, what I mean is I'm not going to take into account my subscription books because they're pretty much all prepaid for anyway. I'm very much of the school of thought of I'd rather have something come out as one big lump sum than many monthly sums. That's just how I roll. I'd rather have everything paid up front. So most of my subscriptions tend to be, I think with the exception of Fairy Loot, everything is, the other two are prepaid, and I'm thinking of dropping Fairy Loot anyway. I want to reevaluate Fairy Loot and its presence in my life anyway, and replacing it with the Lumicrate. So they're currently overlapping right now, but pre-orders don't count. That doesn't mean I'm going to go off and pre-order everything. Basically what that means is there are certain authors who are authors. There are certain books that I know I am going to read the minute they come out, and if not the minute they came out, then within like a month of them coming out. There are books that are going to be like, right, I need that book in my life and I need to know what that story is. My authors. So they don't count. I think I've only got like 4 or 5 books pre-ordered so far, and I think half of them turn up in February. So that's going to be an interesting one. And I think they only really go as far as like June. I don't pay a huge amount of attention to all the books that are coming out, and I will continue not paying attention to that beyond specific authors. Yeah. I will still occasionally buy books. I'm not going to say you're not allowed to buy a book. You know, I might be in Tesco's and I might see a couple of books on the 2 for £9, I think it is these days, or whatever, and be like, actually, you know what? I've had my eye on you guys for a wee while. I kind of want to buy you guys. I know I'm going to read you guys fairly soon. I'm totally allowed to buy books. I'm not on a book buying ban. I just want to be more conscious about what the books I'm buying and not buying books for the sake of buying, which I feel like at one point, especially the last couple of months, I fell into a little bit. If I get book tokens or whatever, then yeah, absolutely I get to go splurge and go spend those. Not a problem. Other things that I'm totally allowed to do as well is if a special edition of a very special book comes out. So for example, on Hogmany, I also want to caveat this with my birthday's coming up next week, so this is like an early birthday present to myself. But Illumicrate are doing special editions of the Black Magician trilogy by Trudy Canavan, which is one of my favourite trilogies of all time. I know I don't speak about it too often, but I'm totally due a reread. They are books, I first read them, I was still in high school when I read them. I bought them with book vouchers I got them for my birthday. So I really like that I'm buying them again with, like, around about my birthday. I read all 3 books in one weekend. I think it was one of my last... I think it was like my last year of high school when I read these, or like my second to last year. It was late high school. And I have read them so much that I have had to replace my paperback copies because they fell apart or were close to falling apart. So I donated my very old tatty copies to my brother, who he doesn't like having brand new books because of things like his creams for his skin. He's really hard wearing on books. So it's like, well, you can have my tatty copies. I'm getting my tired copies. I'm getting prettier copies, like newer, better condition copies that will last me longer, because I do reread them semi-regularly. I haven't read them in quite a few years, actually, like 3 or 4 years, so I am totally due a reread. And just the fact that these had special editions, like, nobody talks about these books on BookTube, or at least not that I notice, not that I see. And the fact that Illumicrate are doing special editions, I was like, I have got to buy these books. So yeah, things like that, where like I'm not going to buy every special edition out there. I'm already pretty good about that anyway. But yeah. My other reading goal is that I do want to get back in the habit of reading more from authors I know I like. That feels like, I don't know, that feels like such a, well, duh. But I noticed this year, with a couple of exceptions, there were very few authors that I kept going back to, that I would go back to. Like, I'd read a book from an author, I'd be like, oh, I really enjoyed that, and then just move on. And I was constantly picking up something new, like a new author to me. And I want to explore some authors that I've read some of their works and went, actually, I really enjoyed that. And I want to explore more of their works. So authors like Octavia Butler. I've got the rest of the Xenogenesis trilogy and Kindred sitting on my bookshelf, so I'd like to get to them at some point. At a minimum, Adulthood Rides, which is book 2 of the Xenogenesis, or Lilith Brood. N.K. Jemisin I want to explore more. I've read the Broken Earth trilogy. I absolutely adored it, so I want to explore more of her. I want to explore more T. Kingfisher. I've only read Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, but I absolutely adored it, and I have heard that she does such a variety of books, like covering all different topics, slightly different styles. So I really want to explore more of her. There's a couple others who it's like I've read maybe one or two, and it's like why have I not read more of those? Yeah. And that's kind of it. The last question was like, what am I going to prioritize reading wise in 2024? And I think that last goal kind of answers that ish. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here because this vlog is definitely longer than even I anticipate, I think. Although realistically it's not. Yeah, how has your New Year's been? Have you had a good one? Thank you for spending it with me. I have a few ideas. I have been making lists of sort of like video ideas I want to. I'm not going to promise I'm going to be a regular poster this year, but I'm hoping that I can be a bit more regular than I have been in 2023 because my posting was sporadic at best. I got a few pretty cool video ideas that I want to do, but they're going to take a lot of background work and they're very much long-term projects. But I've got one or two that I'm like, I could just, if I take an afternoon, I can just sit down and film these. So there. At one point you will get my October wrap up and my November, December wrap up. I didn't vlog for those months because yeah, just for the last quarter with the new job and everything, it just didn't quite work. So yeah, do expect more videos from me this year. You're not getting rid of me anytime soon. I will just be my usual sporadic self. Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. And very, very well done for making it this far in the video if you have. Yeah. And I will see you guys in the next one. And I hope you have an excellent year coming.